fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
That was a quote from Dennis Leary in The Ref. It's one of my favorite movies.
I haven't seen that in a very long time.
My gosh, I love that movie. That's a Christmas annual for us.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Recommend it.
Yes.
There we go.
Around Christmas time, I'll recommend it.
Okay.
Because it is a seasonal film.
You know, Jeff was just talking about his cabinet of wonders before Christina jumped on, that he is now cataloging and heartbreakingly getting rid of some of it anyway. Now, Jeff, you shared a picture of the original 1979 Death Star playset from Kenner.
Yes.
That you had in its entirety, and you are inexplicably getting rid of. Now, this was one of the grails. I never had this.
Poor Jim is already... You're sad?
And it's already gone, right?
No, it is not up for sale. No. So basically what's happening, and my wife thinks that this is very morbid, but I have a studio filled with crap, stuff that I have collected since I was a kid. The advent of eBay was a nightmare because back in the day, you didn't have a credit card attached to that. You had to go and get a money order. And anything that I ever saw in a magazine that I wanted as a kid that was now available to me, I was buying if I had the money, that is, and some of the stuff, $10, $12 here or there. But it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just as I get older, what am I going to do with this stuff? My kids don't really have any interest in it. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, nobody knows what's in here. Nobody knows what's of value. And there's certain things that I prize that have no value to them. And then there's other things that I don't really have an emotional attachment to, but are worth a lot of money. So I am cleaning out my studio. I am selling stuff, but I am taking that money and I'm reinvesting in some high-end comic books and a couple other things. And yeah, you do kind of go down the rabbit hole and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want that. So then you grab it and then you're like, why did I buy this? But the Death Star has been in my possession since Christmas, probably 79. It's intact. The only thing it's missing is the little rope that Luke and Leia swing across. And that is one of the few things that that disappear really quick. But it's been sitting in my corner on the studio for years, and it's just collected dust, and the things are piled on top of it. It's kind of like a treadmill that you get for Christmas, and then all of a sudden it becomes a clothes tree. I cleaned it up. I brought it upstairs. I took it apart. I cleaned it. I scrubbed it. And of course, my wife comes out and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm washing my Dianoga. And she's like, I don't even want to know what you're doing right now. So it is not for sale yet. It's now cleaned up, and maybe I'll appreciate it for another couple of years before.
Yeah.
You want it? You want to work out something?
Well, no, I don't want it. But back then, if you were going to make a Death Star to scale, it's obviously not the full size Death Star. It is a compromise that Kenner has made. So it is 3 levels. I remember it has the garbage compactor, the trash compactor on the bottom with a monster and foam bits that, stand in for garbage. It's got the tractor beam pillar on one side, so you can have Ben walk around on the top and dismantle the tractor beam. And it's got the big gun. Is it the Planet Killer gun on the top, or is it
these are just the guns that they use to shoot down the X-Wings as they fly by.
Yeah, but that was good enough for me. But that was just a little bit too pricey, so I never got that one.
Yeah, that Millennium Falcon, I think, were the 2 big pieces, right?
They had the Millennium Falcon.
I have my Millennium Falcon as well.
I don't still have it, but
Yeah,
I have it.
You have it.
I have one. It's not my original, but it's from secondhand sources.
There you go. Yeah,
Brought back
so
lots of memories. That
Yeah.
and the AT-AT I never had. I don't know.
I never had that either.
No.
That was a monster. That
Yeah.
one was that was big bucks.
Mhm.
And it's
Big
funny
bucks.
because I do look back, and I think the point of purchase on the Death Star was like $38.
Which is ridiculous.
But as a kid, that's outrageous.
Yeah.
And my parents, we didn't have a lot of money, so if I got a couple action figures and a Landspeeder, I was thrilled.
In today's dollars, that would probably cost you like $100 easy.
Easily.
That play set.
Yeah, because it is pretty extensive.
Speaking of
Yes.
land speeders, so I'm on the Lego mailing list because even though my son is about to turn 16, there's still a lot of Legos in my house. And the Lego is releasing a special land speeder Lego edition, and it's like really super detailed. Like it's clearly not for kids.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. I think those Lego sets are well beyond
Mhm.
child.
So is this Landspeeder new? Because I have a Lego Landspeeder, but I got it like a year and a half ago.
No, it's new. It's brand
is
new. It's
new.
like
Yeah.
super
Mhm.
detailed, and it comes with a C-3PO minifig that has the silver leg.
Oh,
Wow, they really went all out. There you go. It's a
Mhm.
special edition. Yeah. Indeed.
We're definitely running out of room to put these
You're gonna have
large
to
Lego
rent
sets.
See?
yeah.
We
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. For Christmas, my son got the Cinderella Castle Lego set, and it's not even finished yet because I don't know where I'd put it after it's done.
How many pieces? Is it?
I don't. I think it's close to 1,000, if not over that. So we're already
Very
down the
cool.
rabbit hole, and we haven't even.
Listen,
Ed,
I could just talk. You want to talk more about Star Wars toys? I got a ton of them. You want to do a tour of the studio back here?
Let's change tact. But no, just to keep us focused, we are doing our next book club entry this week,
Yes, we are.
and this is Jeff's pick, Wonderstruck.
Wonderstruck.
Yeah. So Jeff, lead us into this.
Yeah. So we've already talked Christine, and we've talked Death on the Nile. And I know that we have younger listeners. I know we've had, feedback from some of our listeners who listen to the show with their kids. So not only do I kind of want to lean into that a little bit, but also, I made it no bones that I didn't really do a lot of reading. At some point I was going to think Jurassic Park to tie in with the new movie. And then the other one was going to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But the movie version, no matter how you look at it, whether it's the BBC, it's not worthy of discussing beyond the book. So this is a book series. This is not the series per se. Brian Selznick is the illustrator author. Skylar was probably 10 or 11, so a little bit older than the age group of this. But we absolutely love the invention of Hugo Cabret. It is a monster book. This is a monster book. You look at this thing, it's 460 pages, and you're just like, what the hell do we get in for? But 3/4 of it is illustration work, and it's fantastic. My child is now off to school for video game design, and we used to just become completely immersed in the artwork. Because what you'll find out is that this book is split into 2 stories, and Rose's story is completely told in graphic illustrations. So you're led to kind of fill in, and it's just fantastic. He did the same thing a little bit with Hugo Cabret, the same, although it's just one story, but it's so just chock full of these detailed illustrations that you can just get lost in. So I love this book. We love this book. And I was clueless that there was a movie, which came out 6 years after the book. So when I stumbled across it on Amazon Prime, I was thrilled. So this is the first time I've seen the movie.
Notice that it was an Amazon original. So it looked like it must have been released directly to Amazon. And the strange thing was it's an Amazon original. So you would think when you start typing something into the search button that it would be one of the first things that pop up when it says when you type in Wonder.
Yeah.
But it was literally not in the list. There were like 15 things in the list until I put the S on the end. And then suddenly Wonderstruck popped up. I was like, are you not promoting your own product?
Now that's funny, Jeff. I didn't know it was a book. Because I am an avid follower, of course, since Velvet Goldmine of Todd Haynes. And so I was aware of the movie when it came out. And of course, because it features Space Oddity. So I knew that before it was even, available to watch. So I had no idea it was a book. I just thought it was a Todd Haynes movie.
Okay.
So
we're all coming at this from different angles. Yeah. Like I said, Harry Potter came out in 99. Skylar wasn't even born yet, but I was one of those that would go to midnight, line up and get the books. So as Skylar got older, we started reading the Harry Potter books, and then probably by the third book, they were off and running on their own. But yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. One of the things you look back on with your kids is that half an hour, that 40 minutes every night before we went to bed, we would pick a book and we would read, and this one really kind of stuck with me. And I think reading it and watching this movie this time, it struck me a little bit differently. Obviously, because my child is now off to college, but it also plays into this whole idea of this cabinet of wonders of curating your own life kind of a thing. So it does feed into what we just spoke about before, where I've got a collection of crap that pretty much encompasses my entire life, and what it says about me, I have no idea. But I guess
what struck me though is the great use of art in this book. The book, it's more pictures than it is text. It really is very effective when you're going through the book, the way Selznick juxtaposes Ben's story and Rose's story, and you get the sense that it's silent looking at the pictures, even though you're not speaking the words aloud when you're reading the text. You're reading it in your head. Right. So it really is a silent experience looking at the pictures.
Yeah, I think that's by design, though, because you realize that Rose is deaf. You're thrown into her world where everything is visual, and you don't pick up on that right away. But you're right; it plays out like a silent movie. And we get into the film adaptation, and I think that they did a really good job of kind of capturing that look and feel as well. That this poor girl, lives in this world where there is no sound.
Mm-hmm. I think rather than have it dead silent during her scenes, which I don't think would have worked.
I know, that was interesting. They did add music,
but they added like it was a silent movie, like over melodramatic, to help you along, since there's no audio or spoken audio.
It's also the time period too, because it takes place in 1927. She's obsessed with this silent screen actress, Lillian Gish. Who was it? Gish?
Not Lillian Gish.
No, not Lillian Gish. Lillian Gish was the inspiration.
An easy mistake to make, though.
Sorry, Lillian Mayhew, who is played by Julianne Moore. Yeah, we'll get into the movie version of it, but the book, it kind of leads you along. And what's interesting is that, Ben's story is told in prose. You're reading all the detail. You find out about his mom in the world that he now lives in with his aunts, kind of backtrack into what happened. But I feel that Rose's story actually has more details in it, because you're left to fill that in. It opens, and the movie does a great version of this as well, which is the book opens with a first person point of view of being chased down by these wolves, which is really well depicted, I think, in the illustration work. And it sucks you in immediately when you find out. So Ben's story takes place in Gunflint, Michigan, or Minnesota, 1977. So there is a 50-year time jump between these two storylines. And it takes you a little bit to figure it out. I think if I didn't read the book, I would have been very confused in the movie. Early on, it wasn't explicit what was happening.
Well, in a movie like this, because this is not we've seen many movies where there's two storylines going on at the same time that seem to be unrelated. Right. But unless it's a completely random series of events, that eventually they will tie in together. There's a reason that the filmmaker is showing you these two different things. So you're kind of looking for those bridges, as the movie goes on. But again, I think, and we've talked about this before, knowing beforehand doesn't really ruin it, but it really makes you more involved in the movie, I think, because you're familiar with it already. And it's almost like you've taken ownership of it already, and you're looking to see what they've done.
Well, the fact
with
that
what you
Selznick
have in your
actually-
head.
Yeah, the fact that Selznick wrote the screenplay, I think, helped tremendously to carry that through line and really bring his story together.
Yeah, although I will say that at the very end of the book, when everything's kind of being tied up in a nice bow, and then Ben says, because you just talked about the wolves, which are, of course, a running theme throughout both the book and the movie. And then Ben at the end says, oh, the wolves weren't chasing me. They were guiding me. It's like, I don't think they're guiding you. It looks to me like they were chasing you.
He was listen, he was like glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah, he is.
Like,
Yeah.
they were my avatars. Like, nah, they wanted to eat you. You'd have been afraid, kid. Well, one of the things that I read about Selznick is the fact that part of this comes from the fact he grew up in New Jersey and his parents were absolutely petrified in New York City. And so they instilled this level of fear in him about going to Manhattan. And it wasn't until later in his college years that he actually went and moved there. And I've brought this up on the show numerous times, which is I grew up upstate New York in the middle of nowhere, more cows than humans. I went to school on Long Island because it was as close as I could get to Manhattan. Manhattan was my Emerald City. New York City was just romanticized to no end for me because of the endless movies and probably, stories that I've read about it. So Rose's trip into Manhattan really kind of connected with me as well. And, once you get into the Museum of Natural History, which is a big part of Ben's story, I'm sure we've all gone to the Museum of Natural History numerous times over the years.
Numerous times. Yes.
Numerous times. Whenever I have family members who come down, that's the one place they all want to go.
And oh my gosh, as a kid, the first time I went there, I was traumatized by the whale. So much so that I still get a little scared when I go into.
It's a little unnerving, right? You're walking in. Yes, we know it's all fake, but it's just this massive creature staring you in the face. I will tell you, when Ben was younger, we did a Cub Scout excursion and we slept in the marine mammal underneath the whale.
Really?
Yeah.
You can do that here too. My husband and son have done that a few times when he was younger at the Field Museum. It's called Dozing with the Dinosaurs.
Very cool. Is that where Sue is now, the T-Rex?
That is where Sue is.
That is where Sue is.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Now, the last time I was in the New York Museum, the whale was directly above, the sea life room.
Yep.
It had like tables and chairs, and it was like a luncheon area. And there was and I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, that kind of lessens the impact of the whale to have just people eating underneath it.
I think a lot of people bring their lunch with them, and that's where they tend to sprawl out. So I think by nature, they just added tables. So there is a diorama there that still to this day gives me the heebie-jeebies in the far left corner when you first walk into the room. And the room is massive. It is 2 floors. And, the dioramas and the giant walruses but in the lower left-hand corner is a giant squid attacking a sperm whale. And it's completely dark. And you have to get right up to it in order to really see what's going on. Because obviously they're battling in the depths. But you realize there's no glass there. And that freaks me the F out. And I know it's fake. I know it's not real, but just knowing there's no glass separating me and that damn thing, I'm like, wow.
Did you ever see Noah Baumbach's The Squid and the Whale? That's a part of the plot in that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's diorama?
Actually, it's about like a family that's falling apart, but the squid and the whale play a role in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know if I guess it's intentional that there's no glass there. Yeah.
Is there glass and everything else and not that one?
Yes, that's the only one as far as I'm aware of. Somebody who's listening may be screaming and yelling otherwise, but everything else has glass. And I will also say this. There is a display of, I think it's the Congo with the a gorilla, silverback gorilla, and he's standing up kind of punching his chest. And I had that as a poster, probably from like Scholastic Book Club. Buy 3 books and you get the free poster or whatever. And I had that poster for years. And it wasn't until I actually physically went to the Museum of Natural History that I realized that it was a picture of one of the dioramas. And then I really nerded out. I'm like, I had you on my wall this whole time. I didn't know. So he wasn't doing autographs that day. I will also point out the fact that in 1977, that big display of the Allosaurus attacking the Barosaurus was not there. So when Ben walks in and you see that, that's not
creative license.
It's not accurate. Well, yeah. What are you going to do?
Talking about Ben and his story, lives with a single mom. He is in the dark where his father is concerned.
In the film adaptation, there are scenes in this that are so dark. I don't understand why. It's crazy, right?
I noticed the same thing. I was like, I don't know why he did this on purpose, but there are scenes that you literally cannot see what's going on.
And he got the IC Cons Award for Best Director. And I'm like, what do you there are scenes you honestly don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I was really questioning some of the choices. I was like, a little judicious lighting here would make it different.
Something, at least one.
He's, as you said, Minnesota, lives on this lake with his mom, and they're adjacent to her sister's house. And it's always been just him and his mom, and he doesn't know who his dad is, and his mom won't tell him, until he's ready, she says. Which, is that really necessary? It's not like his dad is a convict or something. Does she think he won't be able to process this information? Or
maybe she's afraid he'll jump on a bus and go to New York City looking for
which him. He does. Which he does. That's the story, is that because the mom dies tragically in a car accident, and he's just left with his aunt and uncle and cousins. He's looking for connection, and he decides to go find his dad, who's, in the beginning, he's always fantasized that his dad is Major Tom, which I love.
See, I love the fact, because in the book, A Space Oddity plays pretty heavily in this whole end of the story. And so I was super happy that they carried that through in the movie.
Yeah. Although, with the movie, and we talked about this before, you go into much more detail in the book. In the movie, it's just like he's interested in the stars, and that's maybe why it connects with him. But in the book, it goes into a bit more detail about his fantasy life.
Yeah, but they could have easily just, not tried to get the rights and just chose another song per se.
Which is fascinating to me, because Haynes was denied the rights to use Bowie's music for Velvet Goldmine. But here, he's using this left and right, this song. So by all accounts, even when Bowie was deciding to not give Haynes the rights to use his music for Velvet Goldmine, he really had to think about it, because he loved his other work, that he had seen. Again, we talked about this a few times. He just didn't want the public to think that this was his life. And he thought that if his music was in it, then it would seem like it was a biography. So, but apparently, and I was looking to see if I could find the story behind this, and I couldn't. But, he probably went to Bowie's estate and they okayed it. Obviously, they okayed it. Yeah. So he finally got to use Bowie's music in a movie. Yeah.
What's funny, though, is I think in the trailer, it's a cover version. I don't think it's the Bowie version, but in the movie itself, it is.
Well, they do. It's like a children's choir over the ending credits, singing Space Oddity.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah. So poor Ben doesn't know where his dad is. He finds these little clues. And the one thing I will say, again, not knowing, if you didn't read the book, he finds this bookmark with this little cryptic note to his mom from this guy, Danny. And he gets hit by lightning. And he, in a sense, then loses his hearing. But if you're talking about tying the two storylines together, I could easily see it becoming something a little more where he gets zapped into Rose's timeline kind of a thing. If you didn't know where this was going.
Now, the other interesting thing is that I didn't catch in the movie where they set it up that Ben was already deaf in one ear, which he is.
Yeah, I think there's
book.
a couple things that they kind of glossed over in the movie version. I think they really glossed over. It was hard to follow the fact that he was living with his aunt, and he was having these flashbacks to his mom. The idea that they kind of lived within eyeshot of his original home that sat there empty. And that's when he snuck back over there and found the cousin dressed in his mom's clothes, kind of a thing. That was a little confusing in the movie version.
Millicent Simmons. Let's talk about her as Rose.
Yeah, she's obviously, we know her from A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2.
I think that came out the same year, didn't it? The first Quiet Place. She may have made these back to back.
I think
I don't know.
Maybe.
But she seems like she is very similar in age to where she was in the first Quiet Place. But she is amazing. Just facially, to look at her. She's very unique, and
yes, agreed.
Like her face just expresses so much. She's a joy, a wonder to watch.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I know. I think she's so cute. I love that scene where she's watching the guy in the pharmacy building the little stacks and towers of the medicine, and she gives him this cute little smile, and I just you just want to give her a hug. She's so adorable.
Yeah, if you're beholden to the illustrations, she doesn't look like the Rose from the book, but she makes the part her own. Yeah,
Ben's the same way. You don't really see him in the book. He was a little more straight-laced, but I did like the fact that he had 1977 age-appropriate hair.
And I think that he actually resembled Michelle Williams, which I don't know how they do that. Every once in a while, it's kind of kismet, but
yeah,
I could see how they were mother and son.
I liked it.
Oaks Fegley?
Yeah, I'm going to say.
He was in Pete's Dragon.
The remake they did a couple years ago.
The remake.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he did a great job. I enjoyed him. I thought he held his own. I mean, these poor kids got to really kind of hold your attention in the movie. So
yeah, and Jaden Michael as Jamie, he just wants a friend, and you can't be mad at him. And you're kind of mad at Ben for being so mad at him. He just wants him as a friend.
Well, all he wants, he's just there to find his dad. Although this kid, stop opening your wallet in the middle of Manhattan. What is wrong with you? That was
Michael, by the way, was in Vampires versus the Bronx.
Jaden Michael?
Yeah.
Which we loved, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And
I think his Jamie's story got a little shafted in the movie version as well. But I thought they did a fantastic job of kind of creating that 1977 Manhattan as well as that 1927. Now you got the two stories converging as both kids are making their way to Manhattan, to New York City. Visually, I thought they did a spectacular job in the movie.
Yeah, I do too. I was reading that they filmed it in Peekskill, New York.
Did they?
I don't know how much they did, or if they redressed Peekskill, or if it was maybe even just, what's the name of the theater there? Is it the Paramount? I think in Peekskill.
It is the Paramount. Yes.
It's the Paramount. Yeah. Maybe the scenes with Julianne Moore on stage were done at the Paramount. Could be.
I'm right down the street from Peekskill.
Are you really? So you didn't recognize a thing? I assume.
No, but then again, I was transported. I was in 1977 or 1927 Manhattan, knowing that wasn't really the case, but. Interesting. I'll have to dig deeper into that.
And spoiler alert, Julianne Moore plays a couple of different characters.
I like that, though. That makes perfect sense that she would play her mom and her older version of herself. Although, again, in the book, I pictured Rose much older than what Julianne Moore comes from.
Yeah. And in the book, there were a couple that was a big surprise. Like when you find the reveal that Lillian is in fact Rose's mom. She's just not, idolizing the star.
Right. And that the who you figure is the dad is really the brother, kind of a thing.
Oh, that was a little sinister as well. Like, who is this guy bringing her to his apartment?
But again, like you said, that plays into the whole silent movie aspect. That, the hand on the shoulder just when she thinks she's gotten away.
But that's funny because I watched it with my wife who didn't read the book. And at one point she said out loud, like when she's at Walter's, she said more to herself than to me, oh, that's her brother. Like, I think maybe she was worried. Like, who is this?
We also got Fox on the Run from Sweet, which was nice.
Yeah. That Todd Haynes, he's a fan of the glam rock. We all know that.
There is nothing wrong. Sweet's right up there with one of my favorite cheese bands.
Ben, when he can't find his father initially, and he thinks that the bookstore is closed for good, he ends up hiding out in the museum because Jamie's father works there. Probably the most absentee father I have ever seen is Jamie's father.
Stay here. I'll see you in 8 hours.
Yeah. Yep. So, and again, as we said, Jamie knows something about Kincaid's that Ben doesn't. That's just because Jamie doesn't have any friends and he wants to keep Ben to himself for as long as he can.
It's kind of like finding a puppy, right? It's like, I'm going to keep him.
There is an older woman that appears in the museum, and Jamie just kind of offhand said, oh, yeah, she's here every day. And immediately who that is, in both. And there's a nice scene in both as well, where they both encounter the meteorite in 1927 and 1977. and you see Rose leave a note and you're like, is that the same note? Did it survive 50 years? No.
Yeah, you would think that they would clean that thing.
And that was done a little bit nicer in the book, where Jamie is not like letting Ben chase him around, where it's like a treasure map, and which leads him right to the wolf diorama, which is a mind blown moment, which is right out of his dreams. You think as you're reading through the book, there's like a supernatural or mystical element to this. And it's just coincidental events, really. Because as you said, the lightning strike doesn't send him back in time.
No.
And the wolf diorama is what his father actually worked on. And he was dreaming of it, not because he's predicting the future, because he'd seen it before, but he doesn't remember.
Traumatized by it.
Yeah. And I will say that the reveal that Rose is Ben's grandmother is done with a lot more emotion I got from the film than I did from just reading it.
Very much so. Yeah, I got a little weepy eyed, even though I knew it was coming. Yeah. You can't help it. And
the panorama, has any of us, I've never seen that live, the panorama.
So it's so funny because we just passed Flushing Meadow when we went to JFK recently. And I think you and I were texting now. I said, you can't go by this place without thinking of Men in Black, because that's where the end fight sequence takes place with the big. This thing is right in there. This was part of the 1964 World's Fair. It is 9,364 square feet. When they were filming this, the cameraman accidentally broke the George Washington Bridge.
Oh,
yeah. So you're not allowed to actually walk on this.
So Rose, it turns out, over the course of her life, works at both the Museum of Natural History, and then she gets a job during the 1964 World's Fair to help build the panorama, and then she stays on with the museum to maintain it. And she's been, and I love the idea of this, been leaving little mementos, because it turns out that Danny is in fact Ben's father, who went to Gunflint Lake to research the diorama of the wolves. And Ben's mother was there as like a guide to help him out with the area. They had a relationship. And Ben was the result of that. But Danny ended up going back to New York, and he didn't want to stay and she didn't want to go. So that was the end of them. Apparently at the funeral, reception takes place in the museum, and Ben and Ben's mom, when he's 4 years old, show up. And I guess this is when he sees the wolf diorama for the first time. And Rose has that drawing hidden, because Ben presents Rose with a drawing of it, which is very good, I thought, for a
for a 4-year-old. There you go. Yeah.
Has it in the building, in the panorama. But my question is, how do you repair or replace a building if it's in the middle of Manhattan? You've got to walk.
You got to have girders going on there. That's got to be. And then just think about, every time I'm in Manhattan or I drive by, there's a new building going up.
Yeah.
So you would think that this thing would be 24/7. Someone's constantly tearing down and building up. But I did read the Twin Tower. They're very judicial in what they will add. And so like the Barclays Center that was added in Brooklyn a couple of years ago, the corporations actually have to pay to get it immortalized in the miniature version. The Twin Towers are still there, by the way. They're still a part of the diorama. But otherwise you actually have to pay. So I guess it's not being updated specifically every day, but yeah, just the dust alone, I think, would be a nightmare. You just bring in a leaf blower. Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I thought they did a really good job of kind of capturing. It's no Hugo, let's put it that way, unfortunately. But I think they were very true to the source material, and I enjoyed it.
Almost overly true.
Well, that's again when you have Selznick actually writing the screenplay.
I know we've talked about this, because we've done now a few of these. And I always think the important thing is to sort of stay true to the spirit of the book. But I like to see the director put their stamp on the material. And I didn't feel like that happened here. It felt very much.
You know what helped me was Carter Burwell's music. It was, because it's the same guy who did the score for Velvet Goldmine. So I felt I was being reminded of Velvet Goldmine as I was watching this.
Because of the music you were, but I didn't feel like the visual. I was like, this is just a transcription of the book. And that can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing. But for me, I like to see, the director put some of their own flair into the film. And I didn't really feel like that happened. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I was like, oh, okay.
It's not a Todd Haynes
yeah,
movie.
I was like, it's just like the book. Okay. Obviously all the actors are fine and everything is done well. I just didn't get anything out of it in particular that I didn't get out of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, if you love the book and you want to see a visual transcription of the book, then that's what this film is. But I mean, the book only took me 2 hours to read. The film is 2 hours long. Yeah, so there's very few things from the book that don't make it into the film.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. This thing came out. It was like 500,000 copies were printed for this book, coming off Hugo, which was a huge success for this man. And he had another one afterwards, The Marvels, which I did not read. That was 2015. So that was well past when Skylar and I would be reading together. I just thought it was an opportunity to kind of make people aware of this book for younger readers. I can't say enough good things about the book itself, because it really was something that we enjoyed when she was younger.
I hope that everybody who reads this book reads the acknowledgments, because they're pretty important, I think, to the development of this story.
Yeah, he really does his due diligence on some of this information. Yeah. And like I said, this go around, the idea of that we're all kind of curators of our own lives, and that we all, at one point Ben realizes that he has his cabinet of wonders, these little things that he's collected that mean something. And do you remember there's a scene in Throw Mama from the Train when Owen, Danny DeVito's character, shares with Larry his coin collection, and he's like, oh, and he brings it out, and it's just coins. And he's like, no. This was the nickel my dad gave me when we were on Coney Island, and he let me keep the change. Like, that's our lives right there, is the stuff that you hold on to. Value wise means nothing. Like I said, somebody who collects a ton of crap, there is stuff that I just can't let go of because there's such a level of emotional attachment to it. So this really did kind of speak to me, this go around, this idea of us curating our own lives and creating our own little cabinets of wonder.
You mentioned the Cannes Film Festival, got a 3-minute standing O when the film premiered there. Although it wasn't a hit by any stretch, it was released widely in October of 2017 on a $7 million budget. It only made $3.3 million at the box office.
Well, we just talked about the fact I had no clue that this was even out there. And you would think that coming off Hugo's success that they would have really been.
Plus, it's like, it's a family friendly film, and usually those play well. And obviously, like, there just wasn't enough marketing to get this out into the public eye.
Yeah, I think at the time when it came out, it was more marketed as a Todd Haynes movie. Again, I'm telling you, I didn't know that there was a book, and I didn't know it was a family-friendly book either.
Marketing fail. So we are enlightening the masses. Go check it out. It's on Prime, as Christina brought up. You do have to kind of dig for it, which is sad, but there goes your algorithms.
Yeah. And it's funny reading some of the reviews when it came out. It's really split down the middle. They either tear it apart or they think it's the greatest thing. Like IndieWire, for example, soul stirring and fiercely uncynical.
I mean, it's the book.
Because a lot of these reviews that I was seeing make no mention of the book. So it's most likely that these reviewers are maybe not unaware, but just haven't read it. But New Statesman, this is kind of mean. All falls to pieces in its second half when Haynes overestimates the power of showing Ben walking in Rose's footsteps or placing his hands where hers had been 50 years later. I thought that was good.
That was like when those worlds collide kind of a thing.
But it's from the book.
Yeah.
The critique is of Haynes, but it's again,
it's like
the device is from the book.
And these reviewers, to your point, it's not his creation,
Right.
Do you guys have a preference, like either in the book or the movie, Rose's story or Ben's story? Do you think the movie or book lost traction like during one of them and picked it up during the other?
I feel that Rose's story is stronger in the book, only because it's left to me. I don't know. Every detail of Ben's story is given to me. And I think it's left a little more ambiguous in the movie itself. If I didn't read the book, I kind of would, like I said, there are certain things that didn't really make sense, or I didn't connect the dots early on. They did a great job with Rose's story. I think is the stronger of the two.
See, I was more invested in Ben's story in the book and in the movie, maybe because of the being so familiar with the museum and loving to see it recreated as much as they could during that 70s period. So I was always looking forward to getting back to Ben's story during the Rose bits.
Okay, enough of Rose. We get it.
I didn't have a preference, but also like you guys were talking about reveals in the story and stuff. Like as soon as it went back in time, I was like, oh, she's his grandmother. Like immediately, like as soon as the book went back in time, I was like, she's his grandmother. Why else would you be telling this story?
Well, as a kid reading this when it first came out, I don't think a kid would make
right.
that logical
For a kid,
jump.
they
And this
might
is
not.
a children's book.
Right. But as an adult reading it and not having read it with a child, there wasn't any surprises in this book for me. Like when she was looking at the pictures of Lily, and I was like, that's her mom. Like, why would she care so much?
That was her version of Teen Beat.
The thing is, I think sometimes because I write, sometimes I can see like how the story would turn, and I'm like
swimming in the soup over there. You're somehow, unfortunately or fortunately, we're not.
It's not conscious. It's not where I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to ferret this out. It's just like, because from a storytelling point of view that certain dramatic things has to happen doesn't necessarily lessen my enjoyment, but there's no surprises. There weren't any surprises in this book for me. And I wish that this was the kind of thing where I had a connection to it with my son, like you have with your child, because that's so meaningful, like to share books with your children. I always remember my son and I used to read together all the time. And I remember he was about 7-ish and we were reading the first Percy Jackson book. And he basically, it's like you're getting to a point where it's like you're reading middle grade books and they're chapter books. It's like a lot for you to read in one sitting. And he was like, okay, I'm just going to do this by myself. I just remember
that's very heartbreaking, right?
Like
when that happens, which is like, no, I got the.
He took the book and he was like, I want to find out what happens. I can't wait for you to read it out loud, and I always remember that feeling of like, oh, he's going off without me. That
was when Scarlett finally decided to start reading the next Harry Potter book on their own. But I will tell you, one of the books as a dad that tore me up was Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh, well,
the scene, like I literally stopped. This little girl dies.
Yeah.
And I just stop and it just wells up in my throat. And Skylar's like, Dad, what happened next? Dad. I'm like, I can't talk. I gotta wait a minute. I was like devastated. I'm like, oh, so yeah, it is a magical stuff that it comes and goes. It really does. And I think we'll probably spend the rest of our lives trying to chase that down and get those moments back with your kids.
But it's also like, as a parent, it's also fulfilling because it's like you've laid the groundwork, you've prepared them, and now they love stories, and now they'll take that and they'll go off on their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it was heartbreaking when he didn't want to read it with me anymore, but it was also like he's choosing to read the book.
I've done my job. He is now going off on his own. It's like when you're teaching a kid to ride a bike and you finally let go of the hands, and there they go, they're gone, and you're like, I guess my job here is done. But it's never really done. And yes, it is. There's definitely an emotional attachment, personal, for me. And like I said, I appreciate you guys not calling me out last week for choosing a children's book, but we do have younger listeners, and hopefully somebody's now made aware of this book and the movie. Till 2 weeks ago, I didn't know the movie existed.
How would you compare the movie and the book buckets wise?
Oh, I thought we weren't doing this. I thought we weren't gonna, because you're telling me I can't say.
Oh, we did it with Christine. We did it with Wizard of Oz. Yeah, we did.
Did we? Oh, see, apparently I don't pay enough attention to our own show. So, book-wise, I'm going to give it a solid 4.5. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with Selznick's illustration style. It is very... I don't want to use crosshatch because crosshatch seems very technical, but there's an energy to it. It's just black and white, but like I said, those first few pages of just the wolves coming straight at you as a reader have so much energy and emotion tied into them. And they're the kind of things where we like the scenes with a cabinet of curiosity, and again, I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of recreating those pages when Ben gets into the books. I was an illustrator, and so getting kind of lost in that world. 4.5 for the book. I'm going to give the movie a 3. We talked about the fact that there were scenes with Ben that were just black. There's nothing there. There's nothing for you to kind of attach to.
I didn't pick up on that. Watching the movie, it never occurred to me that this is too dark.
Yeah, no, there was a couple times I wrote in my notes, I'm like, why is this so dark? How about you? Anybody else? Buckets?
Well, Christina already said it, is that the movie follows the book very strictly. So there wasn't much separation for me between the book and the movie. I'm going to give them the same buckets, 3.5 for me. I enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed both of them. Yeah.
And I'm going to say that I appreciate the work that went into the book. So even though this is not a book that I have any attachment to, I can see that, kids would love this book. So I'm going to give it a 4, sort of more because I can appreciate like what went into the book, but the film is just a 3. Again, I was kind of looking for that flair from the director. And as an example of that, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was my favorite Harry Potter book. The film adaptation of it is quite different, but it's so great because he's kept the spirit of the book, but he's put his own flair into that movie. Unlike all the other Harry Potter films, you can really see his stamp on that film. So I just wanted to, as an example, that's like what I would have liked to have seen from this adaptation.
You know what? The fact that you bring up Harry Potter, I just want to tie this in because Selznick, Scholastic came to him, and for the 20th anniversary, he created a master illustration that encompasses all 7 books. So all covers tie together into one big, beautiful piece of artwork that kind of tells a story. And it is something to behold. It's black and white. It's a little more detailed than the stuff that he's done in this book and in Hugo Cabret, but it's gorgeous. And it's really well thought out design wise and illustration wise. So
I think what maybe would have given this a little bit more flair, the movie version, missed opportunity when Jamie reveals that he's known all along that Kincaid's still exists. And Ben questions him why. Jamie could have looked at him and said, because you will stay here forever and ever and ever and ever. And Jamie would multiply for each and every forever and ever.
That would have been a different movie.
It would have brought it right into that mystical, supernatural realm, I think. Like, what is going on?
There you go.
All right. So we have a new feature this week.
Yeah, this is fun.
What else did we do this week?
What else did we do this week? I worked. I'm assuming we all worked.
We all have separate lives. So we do things, we watch things, we consume things. We don't do necessarily for the show, just for our own enjoyment. So what else did we do? This is Christina's idea. So let's start.
Let's go.
So I want to recommend this week a book that I read. You guys are unsurprised by this information. I'm going to recommend a book.
You read a book, okay.
It is called The Appeal by Janice Hallett. And I actually don't want to give a ton of information up front because one of the delights of this book is unraveling what exactly is going on. The book uses a really interesting format. It's primarily told through text messages and emails.
Oh.
And you first see a conversation between 2 lawyers who are studying this information that's been given to them as part of some case, but you don't know what the case is. You don't know what's happening. And it seems at first like there's a lot of people, a lot of moving pieces. But once you kind of get yourself into the rhythm of it, It's very, very engaging. I was a little turned off at first. I was like, there's too many people. I can't figure out what their relationships are because it's all told through email. But then it's like once you get into it and you start to see things being revealed, absolutely fascinating way to tell a story. If you want to read something really different, that will definitely engage your brain because there's a mystery, the appeal.
And who is the author?
Janice Hallett,
Janice.
Hallett is her last name.
All right, we'll try and put links in the show notes to.
Mm-hmm. What have you guys been doing?
Well, I watched a new movie last night on Netflix.
What was it?
And it was called The Bubble.
We just watched that.
Judd Apatow's new movie.
We watched it on Friday. That's
I
so
just
funny.
watched it last night, and I will say it's a star-studded cast. And
Yes.
it is it's kind of it's a little broad for him, I think, but it is out there, and it took me a couple minutes to get into it. David Duchovny's in it, Karen Gillan, Keegan-Michael Key. Yep.
Veer Das, who's one of my son's favorite comedians, which is the reason why we watched it in the first place, because he had a small part in it.
Okay.
He plays Ron John.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, this is something else. This is a film crew and centers on these actors who are part of this action franchise that are trying to make a movie during COVID.
Cliff Beasts.
So Cliff Beasts 6. So it is something to behold. And yeah, I don't know if I necessarily am going to recommend it, but it's new. It's on Netflix. Go check it out and see for yourself. It is not family friendly, by the way.
No, 100% no.
There's a lot of fornication. There is a lot of drug use and profanity. So, but it kept me engaged. I watched the whole thing.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement.
There you go. I didn't fall asleep.
I've seen the trailer for this, but I haven't watched it yet. The Bubble. Watching and reading Wonderstruck made me go back with the fam and rewatch the first two Night at the Museum movies.
Nice.
I wanted some more museum and natural history. So I was missing in Wonderstruck Jedediah and Octavius. I'm like, where are these two guys? I only watched the first two. I didn't watch the third. Love Amy Adams as Amelia Earhart, and the second one. And I also watched, and I tend to watch these craptaculars. This was a Sci-Fi Channel classic. It's not the right word, but it's called Wyvern. So I'm always looking for like a good giant monster movie.
Yeah.
And I'm always disappointed once I look at the thing and I realize it's a sci-fi film because it's like bad CGI. It's, there is a little commentary on the state of the world where a glacier is melting up in Alaska and it unleashes this winged monster. It was kind of like Q.
I was going to, there you go. Yeah.
So, and it's killing people up in Alaska in this small town.
Real cheesy CG.
It's real cheesy CG, but the main takeaway for me was that it stars Nick Chinland, who X-Files fans may remember as Donnie Pfaster.
I don't.
So I'm watching him like, who is this guy? Like, I've seen this guy before, so I had to go on IMDb. I'm like, that's Donnie Pfaster? One of the creepiest characters to ever grace the X-Files.
Well, if you like cheesy monster special effects, you will like the movie in a movie in the Bubble.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to look at it then.
So that's it. All right. Well, that's our book club number 4. In the can. We have Firestarter coming up.
Yes, and we have Firestarter.
Matter of fact, I gotta go to my library and pick it up as soon as we're done here.
Yeah, I found it on the shelf. I've already cracked into Firestarter, and thankfully, I'm going to have to get another streaming service because Firestarter is going to be available on Peacock.
I did see that, and I'm assuming it's only going to be on the paid Peacock service. Because there is a free version of Peacock.
Yeah. I don't see why they'd put it on the free version of Peacock. But
you know what I just discovered this week? Apparently, because I have an Xfinity account, I get Peacock Premium for free.
Woohoo!
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I probably will go to see it in the theater because I like to see horror movies in the theater. I think that they deserve that.
Label a horror movie though.
Well, it's suspenseful. It depends on how you play it.
This will be very interesting. Speaking of direct translations from book to screen.
But before you get confused, we are not doing this next week.
No, we're already like 3 weeks ahead.
Next week, we are tackling The Northman. I'm going to have to go through some hoops to actually see this. So hopefully we will be covering this next week. The Northman. And Jeff, what have you chosen to go along with this?
Oh, this is also waiting for me at the library. And I swore I have this DVD. I don't know what's going on. I must have just accumulated too much stuff and it gets lost. The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas. And I know that Christina has mentioned this because it's based on a Crichton book, right? Eaters of the Dead.
Eaters of the Dead.
And it is not, it's not a true translation.
It's not a thing like the book.
It's not a thing like the book. But that just makes it its own thing. Mm-hmm. So I do remember being absolutely enamored with this movie when I saw it. And I've seen it numerous times. And let's see if it holds up now that I'm actually going to review it.
All right.
And I am very excited. You better find a way to go see The Northman because we have to talk about the digitized naughty parts. We'll get there. That's next week's episode.
All right, then. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
But you realize there's no glass there, and that freaks me the F out.